Hey Lauren,
Hello,
how's it going?
it's good.
Good. Were you able to get through your day okay?
Uh, I think it's gonna be better,
Yeah,
hopefully.
I do too. Yeah. I don't want to like jinx anything, but I do actually kind of have that feeling.
I know, it's like I don't want to say anything until I'm like, okay, we're good. We're actually good. We're not a joke.
Yeah. Well, math is math. So,
Yeah.
uh, so I'm just doing some last minute updates here. I have no idea. We had like I think over 20 folks registered by the end. But I like the last time we ran this, I think we had 15 registered and then like 8 or 9 show up. So we'll see.
Okay.
Either way, you and I can hang out, which is always great.
Did
Yeah.
you want to start the recording already?
I haven't yet. Maybe I should.
It says you're recording.
Oh, yeah. I guess then I did automatically. So we'll
Okay.
just be cutting off the tails here.
Yeah.
Um,
Hello, Rhonda.
So, hold on, let me. Audio all the way down. We'll see how that goes. So I'm calling in with my phone because I'll be using it for the scanning, but it won't let me mute the audio. So I have a small echo over here. I'll just cover it. How is everyone doing?
All right.
All right.
Doing better than this morning.
Oh yeah, I know. I've got to put like multiple things on top of that. I don't want to, I don't want to jinx anything or, but yeah, everything looks much better right now than it did earlier.
Staying cautious, cautiously optimistic, as they're
Cautious
saying.
optimism. Not something that I would necessarily use for 2020, but sure, we'll call it. Hi, hello everyone. So I'll probably wait a couple more minutes to jump in. I know it's the end of an intense day for everyone. Hello, James. Hello, Felix. Get in my gallery view. Hello, Robin.
Hey, Robin.
Hello, Rhonda. Hello, Cynthia.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello, James. Felix.
And folks without video, hello. So the way that I'm going to run this workshop, I think I'm going to remove some of the components so I can help troubleshoot if you all want to follow along. So I'm going to first show 3D scanning process. And then if you all want, we can take like a 10-minute break. And because that's really as long as it takes. Take a 10-minute break and then come back all together. I'm going to stay on the entire time. So if you have questions, feel free to let me know. When we come back, then we'll work on importing our 3D scans into Photoshop. So I hope everyone has Photoshop downloaded, but if you don't, I'll be kind of demoing the process as well. So you'll get some good quality information. So the apps that I'm using at this point, iPhone, there is an app that I haven't been able to test. The students that have tried it for Android have gotten mixed results. So I can't speak to it, but I've got a link to it. So let's see, where are we? Still 13, maybe that might be our kind of max. So what I'll do is put a link to a presentation that I'm going to run for the first part. There's some additional content in here that shows 3D scanning with like a Kinect sensor or a Kinect sensor with a program called Kinect. There's a free version of it. I'm not going to demo that. We do have in DMA, so I don't know if everyone is San Jose State. If you're not, in digital media art, where I teach at San Jose State, we have some of the Kinect sensors available for checkout. And so in this presentation, I'll show you the process if you want to utilize that. But to be honest, I am getting much better results with the phone. And I am testing this on an iPhone 6. So if most of you probably have more advanced iPhones, especially with the depth sensor. I think Lauren is on the call. Lauren, do you want to say hi?
Hello.
So Lauren is a DMA student, undergraduate student, will be graduating next semester. We'll be graduating next semester, but we'll be demoing a secondary app. So I'm going to use an app called Trinio. Lauren's going to be demoing an app that's specially made for scanning bodies. So all of the algorithms are kind of attuned to body scanning. And unlike other apps that I've used or 3D scanning programs that I've used. This one allows you to just kind of stand there and just kind of like walk around and it will pick you back up in ways that, you know, if you're scanning an object that's kind of shuffling around traditionally, it gets really messed up and like things disappear. But this one is optimized for that process. So Lauren will demo that because Lauren has an iPhone with a true depth sensor. So in order to use the app which is called In 3D that Lauren will demo, you need an iPhone with a true depth sensor, or yeah, true depth sensor, I think. And I don't have that because I just have an iPhone 6. All right, so I think I'm going to drop the presentation link into the chat now. And copy link. And chat. Chat is gone. There we are. There we go. And I'll share my screen and present from it as well. If you don't have the apps downloaded, they're linked in the presentation that I just gave to you all. So you can download them for your own use. And now Zoom is gone.
Is there an Android one too, Rhonda?
Yeah, there is an Android. It's called 3D Scanner for AR Core. It's linked in the presentation. I haven't been able to test it. Some students that have tried it have had mixed results. Like, I think it's really pretty good for room size scans. But if you're trying to scan like objects, it has a hard time with them. But all of these apps are super intuitive. So I've seen the UI for the AR scanner or the Android scanner, and it's super intuitive. So the process would kind of be the same once you get the 3D object file. All right, I'll share my screen here. And there we go. All right, so before we move too far, so these are all of the scanning apps that I would recommend. So again, these come from like my community of 3D scanning nerds. The Trinio app is the best one that I've been able to test. It's the most flexible. If you're doing self-scanning, this is the In 3D body scanning for iOS. Lauren will be demoing that, but I haven't been able to test it, but maybe Lauren, you can tell me, like, does it do objects, or is it really just kind of the body scans?
Well, it's a two-parter, so it scans the face, then the body. So if it can't find a face, I don't think it will continue.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. So there's a couple of reasons why it might do that. I have some guesses, but we can figure out. I'll talk a little bit about that as I scan my object. So I also have a recording for anybody that wants to kind of follow this process after this Zoom meeting. I'm recording now, so I'll be posting this to the Wish You Were Here website link, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. So first I wanted to show, thank you, Lauren. First I wanted to show a few projects from artists that have utilized 3D scanning. So this is Sophie Kahn, and Sophie Kahn uses handheld scanners. And before these apps came out, it was primarily using like a depth sensor, so an infrared light or some way to send out a signal and get that signal bounced back to a device so that you could tell how far away each point within the kind of sensor's frame things were, and they were not very accurate. But so Sophie Kahn used the kind of broken scans she got back as a conceptual conceit of her work. She's really interested in kind of using scanning, talking about them as like almost like a death mask, ways to kind of like capture life, but in this kind of like dead way. And the brokenness of the scans kind of spoke to, oops. Oh, there's a wonderful talk by Sophie Kahn that's linked in the presentation. So if you all want to follow that later, feel free to do so. I don't have my notes. Let's see, sorry. No, so this one is, yeah, Clement Vala. So wrapped terracotta necked amphora storage jar, inkjet on Belgian linen over CNC milled foam sculptures. So what was happening in this was that the artist took a 3D scan of this terracotta object and then got the when we make 3D scans, typically what you're getting is both the geometry as like a sculptural form. Your notes are unshared. Yeah, great. Okay. Yeah. What happens when you make a 3D scan is you get like a sculptural form. That's the geometry, where that gets exported the way that we're going to be using it in a file format called an .obj. But you also get color data, right? So that's from the camera, and that gets sent out as like a image file. And what the programs are going to do that we'll be using, Photoshop being one of them, is taking that sculptural data and then all of the images that it takes, it kind of stretches them out and flattens them almost like a map. And then there's a material file that sits in between those two things, so that it takes the color data and the sculptural form, and it kind of wraps the two. So in this project, the artist is kind of printing the image data back out onto a linen and then kind of rewrapping the CNC routed sculptural form. So the presentation here kind of speaks to like ephemerality and materiality and like the material of the image, but it's also very much kind of recreating what happens when you're working with 3D models and image textures. This is another artist, Claire Henkin, does it say? No, we don't see it. I'll back out and show you a little bit later. But she took The Shining and what we'll be doing is like taking still images and kind of stitching them back together, but you can also use videos, which essentially are a bunch of still images, and stitch them back to make 3D models from the video. And so she took the movie The Shining and ran it through a Photogrammetry software, and then got a 3D model out of that, and then took a camera in like a 3D modeling program and moved it through the 3D model that she got, that in a way that kind of mimicked the point of view from the camera in the movie. So you have this kind of strange recreation that's kind of ghostly and approximates the movie, but also is quite different as well. So let's see if we can find some interior shots here. Oh yeah, this one, here's a good one. So you can see all of these artists are using 3D scanning in ways that are utilizing the brokenness of the scans, because most of the 3D scanning technologies that are consumer available, yeah, thanks, Lauren, that are like consumer available are not perfect. So they're always going to have these kind of digital artifacts. So most of the artists kind of using this are utilizing the kind of like brokenness of the scans as a part of the piece. Speaking of which, yours truly, so I'm showing you a few of my own. So this is a project that's on Instagram where I took images that I found in like things like Kinfolk magazine and kind of like lifestyle magazines online, Serial magazine, and found images from those image feeds that I was like, I want that thing, but also then kind of realized that I already owned it. So like thinking about like troubling images and the power of objects and the way that when translating into three-dimensionality, you have like an array of available options that are reconfigurable and that can produce images, but that in a way are not available to kind of two-dimensional images. So just kind of finding my sweatshirt that I sleep in and kind of rescanning that and translating some of those images into like magazines. But the kind of final format that I really liked was actually taking these images and putting them back out onto social media via my Instagram account. So my Instagram account kind of sits as like as an independent art project. And I would tag these images with like things like Sunday morning or still life. And so they kind of ended up entering into this like bespoke crafters movement. So like somebody asking if that's some sort of funny clay or is that the glaze? And it's like a hole in the scan. So maybe if you're looking at these big, I don't know what it looks like over Zoom, some of them pass like as real things, and then some of them are a little bit more obvious. So here's an example of that kind of geometry versus the image data that I was talking about. So this is, the 3D scan of the object, and then this is the image data that gets spit back out and then kind of remapped onto the object. So we'll be using both of those. And Robin, if you're still on, you might remember these images, my fancy vacuum and my bus. So I'll be scanning my vacuum again because it's an available object and just about the right size. But you can see the kind of complexity of the images and the complexity of the sculptural form. The OBJ file is actually, pretty good with these scans. Okay. So that's kind of the baseline. I'm going to switch over to my phone now and share my screen from there, and then show you the 3D scanning with Trinio first. And then Lauren will show 3D scanning with the In3D. We'll take a little bit of a break, and then I'll show the process to import the scans into Photoshop. Any questions, comments before I move on?
I have one for you, but I don't know if it's appropriate to what you're trying to present tonight. But once you do have the 3D scan from any of these scanning units, the two tonight or the older one that you said is maybe not quite as good. Once you have these, what can you put that OBJ file into so that the program allows you to make video and fly around in it? You mentioned that. Yeah.
So there's a couple programs. I actually think that Photoshop itself has some limited video capabilities. I haven't looked into it. I use a program called Blender. I'll actually put it in the presentation. It's a free program. And what I'll be doing after this presentation is actually making like a little stage with some lights and a camera already in it that's set up to import these scans. So if you wanted to try it out on your own, you could, but you really, for good renders, like moving through it, like that model of The Shining, it's probably something like Blender that I'll link to, or Autodesk has a program called Maya that I teach in at San Jose State. And the Autodesk suite, I think, is like usually around $1,500, but it's free for all San Jose State students and professors, faculty alike. So I can link to a couple very brief overviews of those two programs in the notes. So if once this workshop is complete, it will get archived on the Wish You Were Here website, and I'll show you the link for that at the end too. So you can go back, reference all of the materials from all of the workshops, and then I'll be posting some additional information, things like tutorials with the 3D modeling program. That's a little bit too complex, I think, to get into in the scope of this. We'll see how far I get within the hour. If we have some time, I'm happy to show you like my workflow with that.
Beautiful. Thanks, Rhonda.
Yeah. All right. Blender, Maya. Okay. All right, I'm gonna mute this first so we don't have that. It's kind of wonderful. I always like it, but so that I don't get the feedback. And okay, sound? Great. And screen, zoom, start. Okay, great. All right, so I think I can just open. So I'm going to go into my apps here. This is the Trinio app. This is the scan that I just tested. I think I had some hot spots on the top of my vacuum cleaner, so it didn't pick up the color data. It was just like pure white. But you can see kind of the amount of detail. And I'm just using my finger to roll around on this image. So I'm going to close this, and you see I've made a few vacuums. in order to make a new scan, you just press the plus button. And you can view through the object or the AR kit. The AR kit tends to give a little bit better results for me when I'm using my iPhone 6S. Your results may vary, but I would recommend kind of staying on the AR kit time for now. So I think you can, yeah. These are just kind of toggling between, like, there's like a gallery of archived scans. This face is like my 3D scans, and then the little photo icon at the bottom. Looks like my cat wants to come get in on this. The photo icon will allow you to start the 3D scan. So I like to start kind of like at let's see if you can see, at like a 3/4 angle, kind of down on the object. And then just kind of walk around it in circles, and then kind of lower, and then walk around, and then kind of like coming up from below, because the camera, the 3D scan will only give me data for what the camera can see. So you want to kind of make sure you're getting all angles. So I'm going to start it now, and you'll see that as I move around, I start getting these little like blue dots. So that is Trinio kind of filling in geometric and color data. So every little blue dot is like a point of information that the app is getting. And then on the bottom there, kind of around the start button, you can see that there's like almost like a completion, like it shows me, oh, my cat's gonna get in there. I'll just keep it there until she's gone. Okay, so there's like this completion line that kind of shows me like how much data do I have left. So it tells you how many dots it's saving. So I kind of maybe stayed too long on one of the viewports. I'm not sure I got quite all of the information, but it will tell me when it's done there. So once it's complete, oh, actually it says it's still recording. Oops. Oh, no. There
No,
we go.
it's not your, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so then it says, okay, creating scan, create scan from images. And then I say yes. And then it's going to go to work on its own. So in the background, so it says scan saved, images are uploading. So what's happening on the phone is actually like all it's doing is saving images. It then uploads all those images to the cloud, to the Trinio server. See if I can find it. Cancel. So it's uploading all of the images to the Trinio server, and then on the server side is where all the magic happens. So it's using computers with much bigger bandwidth than the iPhone has to kind of analyze all these images and stitch them back together to make the 3D model. So this takes the upload is relatively fast. The computation of the 3D scan can take, it depends. It depends on how many people are using the server or using the app. Sometimes it's super, super fast for me. And then sometimes, I have to wait 10, 15 minutes. So we'll see how long it stays in the queue. We'll check back. But I have the 3D scan saved in case it takes longer than we have today. So I have my first test saved that I'll show you all. All right, so we'll pause there with Trinio, and then Lauren, did you want to show in 3D?
Sure, let me do the screen sharing as well. Give me a moment.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
How important is it for the object to be on a neutral background? And,
Not at all.
And is lighting something that you need
Yes.
to consider?
Yes.
Rhonda,
So
I was trying it, but all the little speckles that show up when you're scanning, is it only the object or other things get kind of scanned around it? I'm confused about that.
so like you'll see Actually, Lauren, hold on. Before you go, I'm going to answer a couple of these questions with like I'm going to share my screen. So share this one and Photoshop. So when I took this scan, for instance, still getting the hang. See that little circle below the object? That's like the floor, right, that it took. So it does take, like, it does its best guess at like what the footprint is, and it kind of edits out information. So while I was scanning, you probably saw like it might have gotten blue dots on like my desk or my plant or like other things. But when the images are analyzed on Trinio's server, it does a really good job of saying, nope, we don't need that. And it really just compresses it down to a very small footprint. It might be the case that you get some strange artifacts and some floaters, but Trinio has been really, does a really elegant job of kind of cropping out. As far as like neutral backgrounds go, it doesn't, you know, like you could scan, like I don't have, you know, a clean background back here, right? Like I'm scanning, this is what, this is my setup right here, right? So it just happens to be that I, you know, like I wanted it on the floor so I could walk around it. That's the biggest issue, is having enough space to walk around your object. I haven't tried it yet with a spinner. So when I'm using my 3D scanner, that's Kinect, I actually put the objects on a Lazy Susan and I kind of hide under the Lazy Susan and just kind of like, you know, turn it with my finger so the objects are actually rotating. I haven't had great results with the Trinio app and that as a model, because I think it needs a little bit more location data to like hold on to. And it
So
also probably really depends on the model.
So you feel with Trinio, it's better to walk around the object than have the object move, whereas I suspect Lauren's gonna show something different.
Exactly. So with the Trinio, I was really optimized for a static object and a person kind of walking around it.
Lauren, do you have a, could you put in the chat the link to get the application you're working with?
I've got it right here, so I'll put that in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like $4.
The in3D is,
No, that's
I think,
Trinio. Sorry.
yeah, the Trinio is like $4, I think. The in3D is a free one. Which is amazing, because I was, you know, spending like a couple $100 on a sensor and then like $500+ on the program to like stitch these things together. So, and that's that was like a cheap setup, you know, so like $4, like using your phone is like mind blowing to me still.
Absolutely.
Okay, Lauren, do you want to take it away?
Okay. Let's see, share screen. Let me make sure everything's. Okay, so you should be able to hear the audio later on when it goes. Everything's popping up. Okay, so this screen, let me just turn on the lights, is your screen that pops up when you open the app. It has the home, it has the scanning option. So you press the middle button to scan, and then it prompts you, here's some scans I've done already. So let me demo a scan. So then it's gonna walk you through.
Scanning is a two-step process, and we'll start by scanning your head. Make sure you're not wearing glasses.
So it will walk you through it every single time. And because the lighting,
into the oval.
It's a little picky on the lighting, so I have like 2 lamps that are here so that it will actually pick up. So usually you should take off your glasses, pull your hair back. I've had decent results on both, so I'm going to just leave my glasses on but keep my hair pulled back for this one, and then you can try if you with or without whatever works. But it's kind of like a trial and error because of the 2-parter. So this is the first part where it scans your face, and then the second part will scan your body. So you have this, and you have to line it up to your face.
Turn to the right.
And then I'm following
Back
the
to the
instructions.
middle. Left. middle, up, middle, down, middle.
So then that basically checks, sees and scans your face. So then here's the body part.
Hi, this is a quick guide on how to
Run
make
through that one. It asks how tall you are, so I'm very short, so I'm gonna keep it like that. And you just want to find where your hips are and have your phone. I'm using a tripod so that I can.
Here's a quick reminder on what you should do. Place your phone on a surface at the level of your hips at an almost 90-degree angle. Then step away from the phone. You should see your head near the top of the screen and your feet near the bottom of the screen. Your full body should be in view. Put your legs wider than your shoulders. Your arms should be at a 45-degree angle to your body with your fists clenched.
So it would be around
Remember
here.
this
You want to make sure
position.
that you can see your feet.
Then press the
You
white
have
button
your
to start
hands
scanning.
out at the
You will
side,
have
and
5
your hips
seconds to get back into position.
to be a little wider than your shoulders. And because it thinks it's always low light, my trick is just kind of like moving out of the way so it thinks that it's not low light. And then you have 5 seconds to run over. So I'm going to press it.
Here's a quick reminder.
So.
Here's a quick reminder on what you should do.
Okay.
Here's a quick reminder on what you should do. Place your phone on a surface at the level of your hips at an almost 90-degree angle.
Okay.
Get back into
Like
position.
rush over.
Now turn around 360 degrees.
And then
10,
rotating.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Finished. You
Oh my
can
God.
move freely now. Please
And
review the
you
video
view
and
your
rescan if something went
footage.
wrong.
And you make sure that you're standing in the correct position, that you didn't look weird or something. It will take a second. So I say that's good enough. You want to make sure you have everything working. So I'm going to hit the check mark and it's going to upload the data that happened. You want to make sure you don't get out of the application just to make sure, because sometimes I've had issues where I walked out of the application and it didn't work uploading wise, but that was a lot faster than it was earlier.
Wow.
So it will tell you a notification. So this is the point where you can press OK and go do whatever you want while you're waiting for it to upload. Because if you check, it's, oh wow, okay. It says only 6 minutes. When I first started using it, it said it was going to take an hour. So it varies as well, server base wise. And I did a couple scans just testing to see how long things would take. So I'm just going to go back to one that I know is pretty decent for while we're waiting.
What if you don't want to have your arms down? What if you want to be shaking somebody's hand, or what? What happens if you don't stand like that?
So this pose, kind of like the augmented T pose, is like for character developers who end up, developing characters for like 3D animations or for games. This is like gives you the most data, right? Like around your model. It also makes it really easy to rig. So that like rigging is where you put like an internal skeleton inside of this geometry, the mesh, and then bind the mesh to the skeleton so you can like make a puppet more or less. So I don't know if it would scan, because it's like the algorithm again is like, it's amazing that like it's taking somebody who's like moving, and like turns it back into a scan. So like if you're not in that shape, I don't know that the algorithm would catch it. Have you tried, Lauren?
I tried slightly different things and it wasn't capturing as well. Like it doesn't matter in theory if you're just having a static object, but in this, while you're viewing it, it will say, oh, downloading, and then you get to this point, and then I think they're either partnering with Mixamo, which is a great service to use. It's through Adobe, and it will have rigs of animations that you can just plug and play and make them work out. So what it did is downloaded the model. So I'm gonna just spin it around so you can see the model. But also on the bottom, you see that there's like positions. So if I just tap one of those, I am in a weird position.
So this is kind of like using like the rig to pose it. Yeah.
And this is what you said you could do it in some application in Adobe is animate yourself like that. When you
That's
push like,
amazing. I love just like the blank face too. It's so good. Just like mildly amused. So wonderful. Yeah, so the in 3D is optimized for scanning people. The Trinio does objects pretty well. Though for like room size environments, I think it can do like a wall or a corner, but like not like an entire room. Have you tried, Lauren, to use Trinio with a larger scale?
Yes, I have showed you, and I can show as well when I scanned part of a building. I just want to go over really quick about there's like some buttons on the top. So the top right, you can have your body measurements if you do a little bit of extra stuff. There's a version that you can just see yourself in augmented reality. The Discord button if you want help, because if it's not working, you have that going on. And then of course export, which you'd use. Would you like me to show you the Trinio stuff right now or later?
Yeah, do you have it available?
Yeah, I just got to open that. So I'm going to stop sharing so you can like do any other things PowerPoint wise while I open it up.
Yeah, we'll come back to you. So I'll show the import process. I'll check in on my, let's see.
so the in 3D, this one, can you also import it into Photoshop, or is it best to be imported into things like Blender or After
Yeah,
Image or something to animate, or how is that?
Yeah, Lauren, can you show the export process?
Oh yeah, I can do that. Let me open that back up instead of having it in Trinio. So share screen. Okay, is it going? We going? Okay. So then just export, and then you can go and choose whatever you're going to, your contacts, go through, email yourself, and it'll be a zip.
Can you email it to me?
You can do a zip to email, and then you can have your file and everything. I think other things would ask if you use a different application, they'll have a URL that you have to send to yourself and then click it, and then it will let you do the whole thing for the zip file. So you would just email it to yourself with this one, and then you can just open the zip file when you're done.
Will you email it to me and I can demo, like try to the import into Photoshop?
Yeah, I can do that. Do you want me to do Trinio first or do that?
Let's wait. I'm going to show let's take a short break. So do people want to try 3D scanning on their own right now? Yeah, okay. So try the 3D scanning on your own. It's 7:07. Let's come back at 7:50, like aim for 7:15 and see how we are. And then Lauren can show like her scan of her environment. We can take a kind of an overview of success stories, and then I'll show you the import process into Photoshop, which is relatively straightforward. Okay, so break. Feel free to go a 3D scan, and I'm going to stay here and answer questions for anybody that has questions.
I'm definitely a question asker, but I don't
Yes.
want to, you've had a long day, so, and you've already explained it. It takes a while in these other environments, so feel free to just say no another time.
No,
So I am just curious, like, where do you get Blender? Is it an Adobe product? And, you know, the kind of the flying through the object dealy bob, but I don't know.
Yeah, all right. So actually Blender's interface has changed a little bit, so I'm not quite as fluent in it, but I'll show you. Do I have it even? Let me, Blender. There we go. So this is Blender. I'm gonna try importing let's see, what do I have in here? Well, don't save.
Did you get Blender just by typing in Blender and it's a free download, or through Adobe, or?
Yeah, it's a free download. So sorry, I should have done that first. So if you go into Google or any search engine and type in Blender, it'll probably be one of the first things that shows up. Blender.org.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is the one. And then you can go into download and choose your operating system. So a Mac OS, and then you can use a cloud-based version. I tend not to because I'm, an old person. I like my apps downloaded on my computer.
Right.
And then let's see. It's a relatively small download, and I should probably shut this one down. I can hear my computer.
So if you don't use the app version, then you also, everything you make is adding space to your computer versus the cloud, right?
Yeah, but like depending on your internet connection, let's see, an older name. Let's say replace. Blender. All right, so it looks very much the same. I'm going to try to import the file. Import
What
OBJ
kind of
file.
capturing resolution should we use?
What is it? Is that for Trinio?
No, this is for the 3D scanner one.
Lauren,
Has 2 centimeters interior or 4 centimeters exterior.
you're probably interior.
Interior?
If
Okay.
you're scanning inside, right?
I don't know. Yes, I'm indoors. Okay. I'll try that one.
Try it. We'll see.
Okay.
So in Blender, do you just bring in the OBJ or also the MTL and the textures?
So you'll always import the OBJ, and then in the OBJ, there's a hook that will kind of connect back to any material files.
Oh, that it needs, as long as,
Mhm.
do they all have to be contained in a folder together so it knows what to?
Yeah, and like all of these apps are, let's see. Oh, wait, that might have been bad. There we go. So all of these apps are going to package these scans in like zip folders. So this is the, man, I've forgotten all my hotkeys because I teach using a different program, but I
Oh, I
use
know,
my
it's
personal
maddening
practice.
to try to figure these. I always hate these things. I'm like, why isn't this turning?
So this is the one where you can render out like videos.
Yeah.
And so the process for that is a little bit more kind of complicated than I'd be able to show. But they all kind of work on some very basic principles, which is you have your objects, you have your lights, and then you have a camera. Right now, the camera is like whatever view I'm rotating around. So that's my camera. You can actually see this little guy. And let me see if the view is slightly different. View, camera, active camera. So this is like what the camera is seeing right now. So I can actually like move my camera and it will change the scene. But if I animate my camera through the scene and record from there, that's how that like shining.
So you do that live? I mean, literally like go around it almost as if you're just turning it, but the camera is recording it.
Exactly. So if I like move my camera, that's like what's causing that scene to feel like we're kind of panning through.
Can you do that again so I can see what it's doing to the object?
It's not, the object isn't moving. It's just the camera is kind of moving past.
Oh, so you just kind of go around it, up it, in it, anything you can do.
Yeah, and let's see here. You camera. All right, so if I kind of move my camera past my object, right? That's what looks like it's animating. So you can kind of keyframe, set a keyframe at like frame 0, and then go to like frame 300, and then set another keyframe and move the camera between those. And then when you hit like export, it will render out, I render out still images, a sequence of still images, and then stitch them back together to make the movie file.
Why do you do render out still images versus the movie file?
Because things crash all the time. And when they crash, you can still save your images. The other reason, right, is like for archival purposes. So I render out like uncompressed TIFFs so that depending on, you know, like exhibitions or, you know, file formats might change, movie file formats might change, you know, I can always re-render the movie because I have the stills. And frequently, it's been the case when, you know, the movies, and God, please let this keep happening, when they are acquired, when they're collected, you know, frequently the collectors will want both for that same reason too. So it's, you know, like, it's just good practice to, you know, at the beginning, if you're saving out to the file still images, then you have them for, you know.
Gotcha. So you do your camera work either by keyframe or just by hand. And then you export and you go to frame by frame individual TIFFs, and then you pull them back into Premiere or something. And
Exactly.
thank you. That's great. And it's great. And it's got the model and the so basically it'd just be the light and the camera that you'd be working with, or would you turn the model around too? For I guess
like sometimes, you know, like when I've made animations, like sometimes the camera's still, and sometimes it's the objects that are moving, and then sometimes it's my camera that's kind of moving through the scene. Because I think about these 3D models very sculpturally, I tend to have static camera and like objects moving, or like I have a camera that's orbiting around the object to kind of give a sense like the object is like rotating or something. But I tend in my own practice to do very light camera treatment. Maybe I'm just lazy. But I also, like, I don't think like cinema, like that's just not where my brain goes. And so,
I understand. Yeah. So, and if you wanted to go inside it, you would just have to rotate the object and then bring the camera.
Oh yeah. So like if I wanted to go inside, let me see if I can find, select my camera, and maybe, man, I forget how to rotate around in Blender. It's so bad. This like used to be my program.
I get it.
Let me go, if I go into top view or something. View into.
So once you have your image in here, then what can you do? Like you can make them, what can you do?
Yeah, so I'm going to show like how to import these into Photoshop in a second. So
It's
this is
interesting,
now on the inside of the object.
Oh, so you just turned it so that you could go in it.
Yeah, so that was
Camera
just
could
me
go in.
positioning the camera so that it was like in a place where it could go on the inside.
No, I noticed the object doesn't have the textures. It doesn't have the photo skin. Is that?
That's just
always the
like the
case?
point of view. So like this little button up here will change between like the types of view. So this is like my rendered viewport. This is the material texture. This is a solid view. And then
Okay, so it doesn't matter. The camera's catching it with the photo skin or whatever
Exactly.
way.
Yeah. So that's like the geometry, all the faces.
And
right,
you
so,
can go, I'm sorry, but you can go back on it and edit it to like clean it up if the scan wasn't too good.
Yeah, so like in these programs, you can go in and edit the geometry, right? Like you can smooth it out. There's lots of different tools you can use to kind of make it a little bit more like realistic if you wanted to.
So is it like working with Puppet Warp?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And is Maya better or Blender in these cases?
Blender is free. So there's that. Maya you have access to as a student, but they've updated their licensing so that it expires, I think, every year. So it's free for now. I use, because I've been teaching on it, Blender or Maya was like in this learning outcomes of the class that I teach at San Jose State. So I taught myself Blender, or sorry, Maya. And now, since I use Maya all the time in my class, and Blender has updated their user interface, I actually feel a little bit more comfortable, weirdly, well, in different applications. I feel comfortable doing some things in Maya, and Maya's better at some things, and Blender's better at other things. So they're both great. But if I was kind of starting from scratch as a student and I wasn't going to be taking DMA classes, I might use Blender. Although we do have a lecturer who's teaching like introduction to 3D modeling in digital media art who uses Blender. But a lot of the faculty, because Autodesk has been kind of part of our pipeline, use Maya.
I see.
Maya has a little bit better exports. So like if you're exporting for like web viewing and stuff, I mean, Blender's a little bit better for exports. It's a little bit more like friendly with like other programs because it's open source.
So Maya was just something the school kind of decided on. It wasn't that it was like any necessarily better or anything.
I think what it had to do with was like, at the time, Blender was open source and like has an amazing community working on it now. But like when we made the decision, I'm not sure that it had the accessibility requirements or like could meet the accessibility requirements that, well, actually, I don't know why it started because we're not purchasing Autodesk software. I'm not really sure why they chose that. So I built, you know, we can talk about the like differences, but I built a lot of learning resources based on Maya. So I've kind of continued to use it because I just have the presentations and stuff. But I think if we hadn't gone online, I would be using Blender this semester and teaching on Blender, but it was too much to kind of convert to online and change programs. All right, so I'm going to just show you, this is like, you know, the import process. So I'll just delete this. Delete layer. Speaking of forgetting, maybe I can't delete it. I'll open up a new file. How about that? So did everybody get their 3D scans going? Awesome. So I'm going to just create a default from Photoshop's default. And I'm going to go in and actually, no, this is how I actually prefer to go in through the file browser. All right, so this is the scan that I took earlier today. I want to go in. It comes when I share it on from my phone. So in the Trinio app, I go to that little right-hand arrow, I say share, and then I airdrop it to my computer. It comes in this zipped file folder. When I expand the file folder, I can see these are the files I get. So this is one of the texture files, the image texture files that it's using to like recreate the imagery. And like these files alone, I think are like beautiful and weird and wonderful. Here's like little bits and pieces of the scan. The OBJ again is the geometry. So the Mac finders will give you a little bit of a preview so you can see the kind of like sculptural form. And then this is the material file that like kind of sits in between all of these image files and the sculpture file and matches everything back up. So you can open OBJs into Photoshop directly, and all of the material file and the image files will come in with the object. So I do a control or right click and I say open with, and I open to Photoshop. And I think I already had it open. So let's just shut this down, don't save. And there's my scan. So when I click on the object, I get this bounding box. I can grab the sides of the bounding box and get a little, that curly Q arrow, that's gonna allow me to rotate around the kind of side that is selected. So the side will rotate. So I can also grab this top side, oops, grab this top side and kind of rotate around that corner. Or I can use these handles. So each axis has a different color. The inside, that little like square, is a scale. So I can scale around along one axis. So it will make it bigger. The end that end of the arrow will allow me to move it around in space. And then the little arch will also allow me to rotate. So you can rotate a couple different ways. Sometimes depending on the direction the arrows are facing, it's kind of hard to find them. So it might be easier to use the arrows, or it might be easier to use the sides of your box. So that's how you would move your object around. And for most of you, you probably have used Photoshop before. So this comes in as a layer. So the other thing is, let's see, properties, select off. If you select this little light at the top, you get the light bulb. So the light is kind of has a direction too. And this, because I made a scan at night, is kind of dark. If it was lighter, you might be able to see more color information and see that, like, as you move this light and rotate it around, it's actually casting shadows based on the geometry. So like you can see this shadow that it's casting is as if a light was shining on that object. So it actually is using that three-dimensional data. And so if I were to rotate this object, the shadow would change as well. That's true if you bring in other spatialized objects. They'll have spatialized relationships to one another. But because it's a Photoshop layer, you can do all of the things that you do with Photoshop layers, including things like add a layer mask. So if I mask out and then select my object and rotate, my object will rotate through, but that layer mask kind of sits on the front of my scene as a two-dimensional plane, while my three-dimensional object can kind of rotate behind it. I can also, then let's see, draw back the color data, and I can paint on top of it. So painting on top of the three-dimensional object is almost like spray painting on a three-dimensional object, right? So the geometry will block the paint from certain areas. So I'm gonna change my paint color here and maybe use a bright color so we can see what's going on. Oops, I think I'm still in my layer. So I'm gonna make a new layer. And I can, oops. There we go. And paint. Sorry. So I need to be on the OBJ layer. Is that what's happening? And there we go. The OBJ layer has that little box for the 3D geometry. And this is like computationally pretty intensive. So it lags a little bit. So if you've got other things going on or other apps, you might want to shut those. But you can kind of see that it's like following the geometry. And if I were to maybe rotate the OBJ file, we could see that even a little bit more if I exaggerate, kind of painting down that chord or something. And sorry, my little laptop, I should have maybe used a faster computer for the demo. And you can also use things like opacity. You can turn off the shadows of the spotlight too. So like you can see the shadow kind of breaking down.
How do you turn off the shadow of the spotlight?
Yeah, so that is under the properties tab. I'm kind of stuck in this. Oh wait, no, I'm good. So you can just turn off shadows and it will just turn off that kind of artificially created shadow. This here is actually the shadow from on my floor from the actual object in my room. And let's see here. If I rotate. So you can see when I should turn off this mask, it's easier. So when I use that kind of paintbrush down from the top, it paints it on the object as if I was spraying a three-dimensional object kind of down. So Photoshop can interact with the geometry in fairly sophisticated ways.
You have to keep moving it around to make sure you paint every, you know.
Yeah, if you want to change the color of the thing, yeah, exactly. Or you could open up these JPEG if you wanted to change. Another way that might be easier is open these JPEGs up and then edit these JPEGs, right? So like I could open this with Adobe Photoshop and maybe say select all and then fill. And I'm not sure exactly like, let's actually use foreground color. I'm not sure exactly how this one gets mapped because there's so many images, but let's just see. And then I say file, save. And then let's try opening this model again and see what happens. I actually haven't tried this, so.
Oh, that's interesting. Just do stuff to the JPEG and it'll, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to know where that JPEG is, which one is landing where on the object, you know?
Totally. I wonder did Photoshop just crash? I think it did, yeah. Or I shut it down. I don't remember what I did. Yeah, so there we go. So that would be another way that you could modify the texture of an object. You can you can replace like colors if you bring, yeah, so something.
I wonder how, like that seemed to cover almost everything. You pick the highest, you pick the one with more surface area on it. You know how it gets finer and finer. I wonder what would happen if you picked the bottom one.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't, I should have saved it as a duplicate or archived it before I did that, but
oh yeah,
I do have it. So let's trash that and reopen and say, let's choose one of these little fillers.
What if you filled it in with like a photograph?
You can do that too. Yeah, absolutely. It won't map, right? But it would be like really interesting to see. So let's do that. I'm going to change this one to blue and then fill.
Then stick a photo on there.
I want to see photo. I think I want to use the master image for the photo.
Oh,
but
okay.
let's see what happens with this one first, because like I could be totally wrong. I'm just using my intuition about how.
You hackers and your intuition.
I know, right? And save that. And let's open. Yeah, so every time I save out of these images, it actually like crashes Photoshop, which is interesting. I don't know if it has something to do with its attachment to that kind of material file. Yeah, so it's just these tiniest little bits of blue, right? So those were all the kind of filler data. So now I'm going to take that master image with the kind of big pieces, and I'm going to replace this. So say open with Adobe Photoshop. And go in to my, what kind of an image do we want to put on my vacuum?
Don't use image, I don't know. How about,
Like
what do you want?
A furry vacuum.
Fur. So if you type in like image textures, that is usually used for things like this, right? Like remapping. So if you're looking for objects, so let's use this one. I kind of like this one. Let's do. And sometimes they'll be like, if you want them to kind of repeat, you can kind of find like seamless textures that will like repeat. Oh, I want to do the pink fur. There we go. That's the one. Pink furry vacuum. Actually, I don't need to save it. I'll just copy image and then go back into Photoshop and say,
what are all the, around the the textures? There's like they look more like machine made things than something photo. What is that? Those little,
which one?
On the edge of in any of those JPEGs, if you look around the edge of all those little remarks, it's got this. It's almost like little diamond shapes.
Oh, interesting. I haven't like looked at that, but there might be some sort of like, depending on how they're running that through the material file, that might actually be like a registration mark. But
oh, huh.
All right. Let's shut you down. Oh, I know why it didn't crash. We'll delete you and then make sure. So you need to make sure that they're like, when you edit the JPEGs in Photoshop for the textures, that you are, that they're named the exact same thing, right? Because that's what the material file is looking for.
Oh,
so when I saved a copy, it didn't actually, like, it should have probably crashed Photoshop, but it didn't because it made a copy. But I just changed, I overrode and I changed the name. Pink furry vacuum. Yeah, so like you can see it's like stretched out and kind of like mishmashed in a weird way, because like it's looking for each one of those little islands. It's like recreating those little islands. So if I wanted to, I could keep the original image behind my pink fur and like go in there and kind of like really like carefully kind of copy pink fur so that it kind of matched the orientation.
If you did something like a landscape or a person or something, would they be all broken up, or would they?
Yeah, exactly. Same. But 3D modeling programs like Blender will have functions called remapping. So you could, if I brought this into, I'll show you, I showed you a little bit of Blender if you're interested. I know it's 7:36, so if you gotta go, you gotta go, but I'm happy to keep doing this. So I can show you how you would bring this in and use an image texture. But so you could save this out of Photoshop, right? Or like add new layers. So let's say file, new layer. And if I wanted to, okay. And do I still have, yes, perfect. Still have pink fur saved. Move you here. And if I bring, there we go. So go back into my properties, select that layer, and turn off cast shadows. Ooh, I did something else. There we go. I think I turned off the textures here. So you can kind of layer images, and you can layer the three-dimensional objects, and the same rule will apply in the layers options in Photoshop. Whatever's on top in this kind of deck or towards the top will be, on the top layers when you're looking at your image.
Can you bring these OBJ files into Premiere? And if you did, would they retain their ability to?
I haven't tried it. Lauren or Tyler, have you used like 3D models in Premiere?
After Effects might be the best, Robin. After Effects can take them. Premiere would be kind of weird, but you can do it in After Effects, export it to a video format, bring it into Premiere, and you got your footage that you can composite, green screen, or do whatever you like.
What do you mean export it into a video format?
Yeah, just After Effects, kind of like Photoshop, it can take the 3D object, and when you export from After Effects, it'll give you like an AVI file, if I remember, and that is readable by Premiere. Then you can export it to an MP4 or classic format. It's a little bit of a workflow, but that's how I would do it if I was pros that. How would I bring it to Premiere? Go through After Effects, you know, do your animation there. And similar to Photoshop, it'll be in a video way rather than a still image. But same tools, you know, you move it, you keyframe it. It's, you know, no matter which way you go, you can't kind of run from it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So same thing. Like, I don't know if you've used video editing where you've used keyframes to kind of move video elements around, but it's the same basic concept. All right, so I'm going to actually quit Photoshop here, and I'm going to import into Maya. So show you all the interface for Maya. It's very similar in some ways, even more similar now to the Blender interface that I just showed. But I like the UV mapping in Blender a little bit better, so maybe this was a mistake. but I can at least show you like some of the how you would remap. Okay. Yeah. Gotta use the mouse for this. All right, so I do an import, and I'm gonna find, I think it was in my downloads, right? I'm gonna import the OBJ. So I always want to use the OBJ file as the import. And there's my little OBJ file. If I wanted to, let's see, I'll rotate here. If I wanted to apply an image texture to this, go into my rendering tab and I assign a new material. These are just kind of like the base materials. So like, is it shiny? Is it matte? Is it kind of in between? So I'm giving it kind of a Lambert texture, which is like a diffuse kind of like middle ground texture. And then I can go into the image texture tab over here. And instead of color, I can change the color here and say, let's make it purple. And now I have a purple vacuum. Or if I go into this little checker box next to color, I can drive it with a file that's an image. So maybe I should have saved pink for save image as, save. And let's see if I can go back in, downloads. There we go. And then I need to change my shading, turn on hardware texturing. All right, so it's still kind of a garbled mess, same garbled mess, but I can select the object and then go into my modeling tab, and then the UVs are kind of like telling Maya how the object is mapped, like what view, like what parts of the images go with what geometry. If I use something like camera based, it will use the view from like my perspective view right now and just kind of project the image onto the object, which is kind of the fastest, dirtiest way. Let's see. Why? Let's see here. It didn't like that. Ooh-wee. There we go. All right, so it's kind of projecting again the fur directly on the object as if it was from this camera view. There's better ways to do that. If I select my object and then go into my UV editor, I can get a little bit more specific, right, about how each object is kind of associated with this image. I can also try an automatic. So this UV automatic option it's like Maya's best guess at like how this should actually be wrapped, and I'm getting an error. Oh, there we go. UV and automatic. It's probably gonna take a little bit of time. because it's trying to take the geometry, and with these 3D scans, like this automatic like wrapping does really well with like simple shapes. But once you get into these super messy scans, it kind of is like, I don't know what to do. So we'll see what it does. But Blender, the other program, is actually a little bit better at that. I mean, it's like, okay. It'd probably be like easier to tell with a more recognizable image, but it's okay for now. Has anybody been playing with their 3D models in Photoshop, or does anybody want to share anything?
I've played around in Photoshop. I've never done it before, but I'd like to see if anybody else has.
No, I was just trying the Blender and I had a hard time even downloading my avatar or the.
Yeah, like I wouldn't mess around. Robin was asking about Blender, so I started showing it. But like for the kind of phase 1 of working with 3D models, I think that Photoshop will probably be a little bit easier. There's just like a lot, you can save images directly in Photoshop in kind of intuitive ways. With the 3D modeling programs, you have to add lights and, add a camera and then tell which camera to use and blah, 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 which I'll create some kind of like, I have some like studio lighting sets from both in Maya and Blender that I'll provide. So these are like files that you could open and import your models into and have things more or less kind of set up for you. So I'll be adding those to this tutorial and then adding it to the Wish You Were Here website. So if you want to come back and do that, you can. I'll also, if you're interested, I'll link all of the tutorials that I've been making for my 102 class, which is the introduction to Maya interface. So those all have like these slide tutorials that show step by step. And I've been going in and adding video tutorials that show the same thing since we're now online. So in ways that I wouldn't recommend in the past, the lectures are actually kind of, you could move them through them on your own. Any questions, comments, or concerns, or shareable moments?
Is there any way to get a higher res? I know, now I'm going back to Trinio. Is there any way you can kind of override it so it's taking in more information or something to get it to be a higher res?
Bigger image, or like?
Yeah, because if you're bringing them into Photoshop, then they're bitmapped and they, so I was just wondering if there's a way to get more resolution, more information.
So I did a really fast scan with you all under low light conditions. So the better the lighting conditions, like consistent and bright, because it's using the camera data, the better the resolution the scan is going to be. Also, for most of you using these things, you're probably using, if your phone has like a true depth sensor, you're going to get much better scans than I'm able to get with my little iPhone 6.
What's a true depth sensor?
So it's using, well, I actually don't know.
Is it just the newest one?
I think
is it the newest? I think it's just the 12 or something that has it now. I don't even know what it is, but
I think 10 and above has it, but true depth is like sensing for the face. So that is like facial recognition. And so when Lauren showed the scan in 3D, there's facial recognition. The iPhone 12 has LiDAR in it, so it's an additional like sensor.
What's that? What is that?
So it's like using light-based instead of like a radar pulse to sense like distance away from something. It's using a light-based sensor system to sense distance away from something. So it can composite depth data from the camera and the image data that you're getting out of your camera. So it's just it's going to produce a much cleaner result.
Huh.
Question about the lighting and so forth, because what I got in Trinio looks great. But then when I sent it over to Photoshop, it's a lot darker.
Yeah, so Trinio is probably using like optimization for the display. If you open it up in Photoshop, you can always use the same curves that
Right.
you use to adjust your images to adjust the data
Okay.
from that layer.
Okay.
So you can go in and mess around with the curves. And that's essentially what the app is probably doing automatically.
And James, I use it in RAW. So I go and I use the RAW filter for the same reason. When you bring it into Photoshop, it looks darker. So you can bring it in and use the RAW filter in there.
Okay. This is awesome.
Yay! Oh, good.
I'm seeing
always
so
like, I
much
think it's
potential
cool, but,
from
like,
this.
I'm like such a specific, narrow. I love that you're happy. That makes
Oh my gosh, yes.
and it's also, depending, so for Cynthia, I'm imagining, making like scans of your gallery or like making scans of your pedestal, there's ways that like this could be interesting, like administratively on top of, like every time I make a show now, I get a floor plan of the gallery, and every exhibition I've like recreate like I've moved the little pieces around, like looking at it from like the front door or like looking at it from whatever side, and make adjustments that way so that when I go into the gallery I have a much better sense. Like sometimes I'll like change like the placement of certain objects, but it's such a wonderful visualization tool for admin work
Cool
too.
to think about as an exhibition design tool, and I'm wondering, how can I incorporate or view multiple objects at the same time and move them around? What program would you use for
So I would do that in probably Blender or Maya. It's going to give you like the most kind of like photorealistic lighting too, and really give you like a good sense of the space.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've actually had a few pieces that kind of developed from that, like artistically from that process. Like I've made a scan of a sculpture and then I brought it into the gallery, and I had like tapestries in that gallery that I had played like a cloth physics to. And it was like a mannequin from an American Apparel bankruptcy liquidation, that I took the same tapestry and kind of draped it over the mannequin. But that happened because I already had all of those objects in the gallery view. But then I was doing something for the exhibition that was making a mess in my space, and I had to cover up the mannequin that I had scanned with a cloth. And then like I wasn't really sure that the mannequin was going to go in the gallery. I didn't really know what was going on. And then like I turned around after like doing the messy thing, and I saw the mannequin like covered like with the cloth over it. I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Like it's like not that
But
thing.
how did it do it?
What?
How did it do it? How did it, like, I'm still thinking of that second image you showed with the cloth, over the thing that had been CNC'd. She CNC'd the vessel, and then that wrapped cloth, because you said she used the textures, but yeah, I still don't see how she did that, because
so like she took it. This is the one that I was talking about. So then I tried to make a 3D scan of the fabric over the model, but then because I had tapestries that I had modeled in the gallery, I had applied a cloth physics to it. So one of the things that you can do in 3D modeling programs is say, okay, I've imported my vacuum. It's like this shell, make this shell cloth, and the physics engine will calculate what cloth would do if it was that form, and then like slowly fell. So that's what I did to make this image. I just took a flat plane, I applied a cloth to it, and then I stuck the 3D scan underneath it in the modeling program, and it just kind of fell, like the cloth slowly fell around the object. So this is actually a movie file, and I just like scrubbed through to find the frame that I liked that made the best shape before it kind of fell off onto the floor, and then I rendered that image.
Huh.
I'm
pretending like I know what you're saying.
It's okay. Like, I know, like I'm going to get so excited and so nerdy about something that No,
like I know. It sounds so cool. So there's a thing in Blender or whatever that you can say cloth and it turns it into cloth?
Yeah. Yeah. Or
oh my God.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Or liquid, like make it water,
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She goes, very satisfied. She says, "Oh yeah, yeah."
Well, that's the part that I get all excited about and nerdy, you know.
Yeah.
I love like, yeah, again, because I kind of think sculpturally, it's like taking a sculptural form and then turning it into a video, like capable of like translating material, but then also time, and you know, it just becomes all collapsed and weird and wonderful.
So once it's a sculptural form, can you just say, "Please turn into a video," and it will?
Yeah, exactly. Like it just takes the camera and rotate around the thing, right? And now it's a movie.
That'd be excellent. Yeah.
Okay. 7:54. Did anybody want to show what they were able to do
I was unsuccessful
with the scanning app?
with my scanning app. It seemed like I couldn't go around the object. It was more like the camera itself was the center of it, and it was scanning the room. So
Were you on object or the AR kit at the top?
I didn't get an option.
Oh,
Did you
she
see
must
the
have
blue
been
dots?
on
Did you
object
see the blue
because it was
dots?
No.
No, it was in a camera mode when it goes like.
I'm using that 3D scanner for Android.
Oh, right. Yeah. I've had, so same.
Oh.
So like most of the students that have reported, I don't have an Android to test it with, but have used it, say that it can do like rooms, but it can't necessarily like do objects. So it's like
There's no
that, like
option.
you're the camera's the center and
Oh,
you
that's so
don't move, you just
interesting.
kind of rotate
Yeah.
around in the room.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that'd be cool if I was trying to scan my gallery and make it a virtual walkthrough type of a space.
Yeah.
But there's no option. There's an option to upgrade. I didn't click that button yet, but yeah. For scanning, that's why I was like, what resolution do I want? Because that's all it offers.
I got it. Yeah. I'm going to be, so DMA is getting some Android tablets with like actual like depth sensors on, like that can clamp on and do all this stuff. So I'm going to be testing out in more variety of tablets, but then that will be available. You know, if you're not in DMA, get in touch with me and you want to play with it, let me know.
I did take it out and tried doing landscapes. I know you're not supposed to do it that way, but I just kind of, just seeing and you get something.
Like a thing, like it's probably like, so like Cynthia's background, like it could probably do like that, like kind of like a dense thing, but like, like for like the kind of vast expanses, it's a little bit harder. There are like the Kinect sensor with Kinect can do that because you can kind of define the bounding box. So that's, but the Kinect, you need an outlet. So the tablets that we're getting some iPads and some Android tablets. Those are great because that you could probably do your landscapes with those. You can just kind of like walk around with it and scan.
Oh, because it would just power off
of the device. Yeah. I know.
Hey, I was going to ask, could I share Jackie's scan? I know she had to run out of here, I think, but she sent it to me.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so we'll show you what happens when you give Tyler your scan. I'm just kidding.
What did you do?
Nah, I'm just kidding. Well, anyways, this was my Photoshop one. I'll breeze through that one. But Photoshop actually went pretty well. I never used it before, and I was able to add the filters. You know, I didn't use the raw filter like Robin. I was a little bit late to that, but I used the painterly filter, so it looks like I'm some Picasso here, but I ain't. I'm a digital artist, and I cheat my way through it. No, I'm just kidding.
Love it.
And then here's Jackie with my bathroom counter.
Awesome.
Oh,
So
that
you
is
did
awesome.
this, you just scanned your counter and then put the scan of Jackie in there.
Yep, you got it. And then of course using some world lighting and stuff. But yeah, that's the apps. The scan for the bar is the Trinio app. So again, took my time, wrapped it around. Of course, some things look a little bit wobbly, but I like the wobble. And then Jacqueline used the In3D app that Lauren demoed off today. And again, in these apps, I could do whatever I want.
Wait, are you in? What are you in right now?
I'm in Blender.
Oh, in Blender. Oh, okay. Because I was wondering how you're keeping the 3D like that in Photoshop.
Photoshop, you can do that as well, and it was really interesting for me. But Blender, like I said, this is my bread and butter. So this is this is my home. It's easy for me to manipulate it, but it's pretty cool. Pretty nice scan from Jackie. That's some really good detail.
Well, can you make her start dancing around like?
Yeah.
I think I distorted her, so now she's getting a weird jig that she's giving us now.
Wait, how'd you do that? How'd you just do that?
So the In3D app, for some odd reason, always exports it with this dance.
It does?
Yeah. Now, for some reason, I'll bring her back down a scale so we get a little bit more human-like dance. But yeah, the In3D always gives this one for some reason. So I have to keyframe it out or just like get rid of the keyframes. But yeah, you could have a little dancing Jackie around your bar stool or whatever.
That's awesome. So cute.
But yeah, the one cool thing is I was playing with some things. Some things are kind of crazy. But you know, of course, if we have like Jackie here, we can use modifiers called like an array modifier. So now we have 2 Jackies. And then what if you wanted to add like,
did it bring the animation?
I think it does. I have 100 Jackies dancing here, so that might be a little bit ambitious. So let's do 10. Let's do 10 Jackies.
I like the 100 Jackies thing.
Oh, that's pretty damn cool. This is all in Blender.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, all in Blender.
But it's got a
This is
timeline.
also like one of those like amazing free, like that it's free programs.
I didn't
And-
realize
and
it had
for-
a timeline.
What's that?
Oh, I just didn't realize it had a timeline when you went in. We weren't using that aspect of it, so I didn't.
No.
Huh. Wow.
Oh,
You
this
can
is
bring in
now when I can-
videos. You can actually like Blender has some plug. Well, they're probably rolled in now, where you can actually kind of take a video and then slide through the timeline and like mark like key points in the video that are the same points. Like if you're moving the camera, and it will spatialize the video for you so that you can put objects, like 3-dimensional objects, in your scene, and they'll kind of move around with your camera. It
Wow.
basically kind of creates a 3D map from the video, not a model, but like a 3-dimensional map.
Wow.
It's like so many, yeah, Blender's so wonderful.
Yeah, you get some weird things from it, but it's really fun. Fun tool. It does it all, kind of.
Anybody else have fun things to share?
I have a small question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the sensors. Is
Yeah.
there like a specific class where we would be using them?
In Art 102, I'll be
102.
using it. And if I teach at Art 107 again, I'll probably use it. So kind of another thing that we do with our 3D models is use them in augmented reality. And so I use a core, like an AR JavaScript library, so you can do it on the web. But I also use something called Unity, which is primarily for game design, but you can do lots of things with it. And use that to export augmented reality applications. So you can take your 3D models and then kind of like walk around them with your phone. So it's a very different viewing experience, but yeah, Art 102. And like, so like they'll be reserved for Art 102 when they come in. These are primarily for that class, but they'll also be available for DMA checkout. So if they're not reserved by me for like my demo days, they'll be available for any DMA student. And if you're not a DMA student, get in touch with me. It's likely, I've had like 8 of my Kinect sensors and kind of like available, and they don't get checked out a ton, so.
I see.
Beautiful. Thank you for a great, yet another great scanning. Maybe if you keep offering them, I can keep collecting and have 150 scan workshops.
And then make a 3D model from the video.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for your time today. It was such a wonderful way to kind of geek out and decompress. Thank you.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Bye.
Bye.
If you want to share your models with me, send me like screen grabs and stuff. It'd be great to see and like post if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams.